Headed in by Davina, coming up from behind.
Ball for Horan! Portland ahead by 2. A diving header and a beautiful goal! Nagasato! 2-0!
You're listening to the Her Football Hub podcast, covering the world of women's football.
Hello everyone, Taylor and Kara here with another Stateside podcast. The NWSL Challenge Cup has been underway for several weeks now.
Yeah, and we can now exit the preliminary rounds and begin looking forward to the quarterfinals. So as we look back on a very exciting round of matches, Taylor, what were some highlights from the matches that were showstoppers? So, like on ESPN when they have the SportsCenter's top plays of the day, how about we do Stateside Power Picks?
The Power Picks.
The Power Picks. Yeah, let's do some of that.
Well, of the 16 games played so far, there are several on-field moments I can think of, and they're kind of like stuck in my mind, but why don't you start it off?
Okay, yeah. Let's go to one of the first few matches that happened at the very beginning of this group stage, I guess you can say. And it was that 3-3 draw where the Royals, they actually ended up coming back. They were down 3-1. So they tied it up with very, very limited time left. I think they were in the additional time. It was an awesome header from King to tie it up 3-3. So that was definitely one of the picks that I would say made my power pick moment.
Yeah, and I think just that game in general, like even if that didn't happen, it already would be a power pick because of how Houston just ignited and got those 3 goals. But then, boom, Royals struck back.
Yeah, they definitely decided to catch up to the dash because they were dashing on quickly. So, yeah, that was definitely one that stuck out in my mind. Another one happened midway through the group stages, and that was when the Thorns took on the Spirit, and it was going to be Ashley Sanchez, her back heel assist to Stab. So it was going to be a level score, so they ended up tying it 1-1. But that back heel, just the whole thing that happened, that assist, it was just massive. Like, that was awesome.
Yeah, as we said in our Twitter audio match report, like that just came out of nowhere. I think everyone was like a bit shocked and what just happened kind of moment, but that was amazing.
Yeah, that's not something that you can practice as a set piece. That was just
Exactly.
That was luck of the draw. You were in the right place, right time, and hey, everything worked out. So that was a power pick in my mind. And another one was most recent, was going to be the Sky Blue and the Dash. And this is what made them go up 2-0 over the Dash. Sky Blue, it was going to be Kawasumi. She hit about a 30 or 40 yard out shot because Jane Campbell had came up to clear the ball, and then Kawasumi just said, hey, she's off her line. Boop! She just chipped that thing and it went in. So that whole thing was like, wait, what? Did that really just happen? Like, that was a power pick for me.
Yeah, that whole sequence was interesting because Houston, they were definitely not on their game that day, and that whole moment kind of like wrapped that up because of how every player from Houston defense, Jane Campbell herself, they were kind of like in a hazy state, it seemed like. But who wasn't in a hazy state? That was Kawasumi.
That's right. She got her head up out of that swivel and said, guess what? Let's just dink this in. And hey, yep. Sky Blue came out on top 2-0 for that game.
Yep, that was the game that we were expecting them to have, one of these games in the tournament, and they ended up doing it against Houston.
Exactly, yes. So those are probably the 3 that stand out to me right now during the preliminary rounds or group stages, whatever you want to call that first section of play. How about you, Taylor?
Really, like those actually are the ones that stuck out to me as well. So besides that, I think there's just one word that sticks out to me from this whole first round of games.
One word,
and that word is headers.
Okay.
All of them. Shea Groom's flying header, the great Horan's power header, and Bethany Balser's stoppage time winner, where she was perfectly picked out by Momiki. I mean, you can't get better than that.
No, those are all great headers. And pretty much 2/3 of those literally were a flying header. Because Lindsay Horan, it was the dive. And then obviously Shea Groom, she was taking off. She was heading towards Salt Lake. She was flying so high. And then Bethany Balser, that was just great. The placement and everything, even though it was against my Royals, but it was fantastic. It was a good game. Good header.
Yeah, a lot of magic happening there.
That's right.
And magical moments aside, what team has impressed you or won you over, like in the overall competition itself?
I have to start out with Washington Spirit because I remember when we were talking, it feels like ages ago, but it literally was last month, leading up to this tournament, that they were probably the youngest squad coming into it. They had a lot of fresh players. They only had Rose Lavelle and Andy Sullivan and Bledsoe, honestly, like the big names for that team. So coming into this match, like this whole tournament, we were kind of like, we'll just kind of see what happens. But honestly, like they've really impressed me. They've stepped up their game. They have come to play, like honestly. So I'm expecting them to go very far in this tournament. Every game they look better and better, and it's definitely promising for next season. What they can do. So that's probably one of the ones that's really impressed me so much.
Yeah, and they sit in second place in the standings right now. So they also kind of seem to gain some steam towards the end as well. So I know they started off great. They kind of like took a little dip, but then they got back on track.
Yeah, exactly. They seem to be very, very focused, and it seems like all the pieces are starting to try to fit and find the right niches to execute all the plays, the set pieces, and they have done very, very well just in the first stage. But there's always that one team, Taylor, that is the elite.
The elite team.
The elite team, and that's North Carolina. So they always, it seems like just because that they are foreseen as like they're going to win everything, like they're so great, like they're the standard, like that's true, but like the work that they put into it, the mentality they do have, and just Paul Riley, just like his coaching style, like it honestly floors me, just the mentality that they have. So that's another team that won me over, continually wins me over. But just moving in each season, we had talked about beforehand in the other podcast that there's not a lot of player rotation, like draft wise, or signing off or doing anything like that. Like they keep their core knit. I remember in one of the games they were talking like a lot of them came from when it was New York, that club. So they've all worked together, and you can definitely see how that culture's grown and what they consistently do. So yeah, it's just interesting. Every season they get better and better, and they do become that standard.
Yeah, and as a team, you can easily go through 3 seasons, win everything, but then that mentality kind of breaks down, and then that dynasty is over. But this is the kind of team where you don't see that happening. They're not winning games like 5-zip like you see with Lyon or something. Like this is a very close league, but yet they're still able to pull out the wins day in and day out. A lot of times it comes kind of late too, but it's just that never give up mentality, and that's why they're the best.
Yeah, they do have those magical moments. And another one that kind of sticks out to me, I think has done for a lot of people, is the Houston Dash. That's another impressive team. Although the last 2 games, they might have dashed and crashed. So, but they started out extremely strong. I still think they can pull it out. So that's another team that I think should be on everybody's radar moving forward into the next season.
Yeah, I really agree with both Washington Spirit and Houston Dash. They are on the rise. The team that has surprised me the most, though, would actually be Portland, but not in a good way.
That's true.
They ended the preliminary round at the bottom of the table.
Yeah.
And as we kind of talked about last time, Washington Spirit and to some extent the Houston Dash, they're kind of expected to be on the up and up, while teams like Chicago and maybe even OL Reign would be taking a step down from last year. So Portland, though, kind of surprises me because, like Courage, they didn't really make a lot of changes, and if anything, they made better changes, better incoming players. And yet here they are at the bottom of the table.
I think, honestly, nobody pictured this. Like, I don't think we even pictured that they would be at the bottom. But honestly, with the rounds, how they had been playing, like, they had potential. Like, they were making amazing opportunities, fantastic combos. Like, they had possession the majority of the games they played. So it's like, where's the disconnect?
Yeah, and it's kind of strange because they are at the bottom of the table, but they've only lost 1 game. So the 3 other games they drew. And it shows that they're still in this. Like they could probably pull a rabbit out of the hat in the next round, and you wouldn't really be surprised by that. But it's just surprising where they sit currently.
Right.
And unfortunately, though, they have to go against NC Courage in this next round. So I think if they probably got 7th place in the standings instead of 8th place, you might be able to see them go a little bit further in this tournament. But they do face the best of the best, and so it's going to be a difficult one for them.
It's kind of unfortunate because how this tournament, this cup is styled, it only shows a portion, and especially the lead up to like preseason, like that didn't really exist. So like all the different nuances behind the scenes, like it's not fully developed, it's not there. So I agree with you full-heartedly. Like Portland, like they're still probably going to surprise us, and honestly, who knows, in the quarterfinals, like they might really turn it on. They might be connecting every single time, and they surprise everybody like they normally would see Portland do. But just how that the matches ended up, it's like, wait, what's going on? And then you kind of have to think, oh, well, you only had to play 4 games. So it's kind of interesting.
And do you think maybe this could be them missing their fans? Like they're the kind of team that thrives on their home crowd stadiums and like their home crowd attendance. And so I think they might be missing a little bit of that fuel that the fans would give them.
Right. I think probably all teams in this cup is missing that to an extent. Not only that, but also because you're only having, 4 to 5 days traditionally, except for, these past things. Some teams had 7 days off, so that recovery and rest time is much shortened. So it is like that World Cup. So that's not anything the NWSL teams are used to. So not only do you have that, but you're missing your fans, you're missing the different altitude you're used to playing in because Utah is crazy altitude. So there's a lot of factors I think that do play.
Yeah, definitely.
So, but no game has had a runaway match. The most points scored by a single team in a game have been 3, and that was the Dash and Royals game where it was a draw 3-3. That's probably the most unique scoreline of this whole tournament thus far. But like as we've said, this league is mostly very close in terms of the quality. Yes, we do have North Carolina that set that standard up there, but for the most part, the NWSL have had those hard-hitting, action-packed games that leave the fans virtually wanting more, but just all the supporters like, okay, pouring into this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the quality is so close in comparison. Like you look at the table, I would say even like position 3 to 8, they're basically on par with each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all the points. Even like that one time, there was 5 teams tied for second place. Like, what other league do you have that happening in? Like, it's not something common. So NWSL is very close in terms of that.
Yeah, and that's what makes it all fun. And now anything can happen as we move into the quarterfinals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, flip that quarter. See what happens.
So what can we expect to see from these upcoming rounds? I don't know, but can NC go all the way for a 3rd time, or will someone disrupt the paradigm?
Oh, that rhymed. Hey.
Yeah.
You're like,
wordplay.
I'm winning today.
I'm on a roll.
Yeah, buddy.
So our matchups are NC versus Portland, Houston versus Royals, OL Reign versus Chicago, and Sky Blue versus Spirit.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you got?
Yeah, I'm thinking North Carolina. Unfortunately, I feel bad for Portland because, like, yeah, it's just that whole game. Everybody is like, you don't want to play North Carolina, and it's like, yeah, but unfortunately, somebody does. But I do think North Carolina will win. I think Chicago will end up winning over OL Reign, and then I do think the Spirit will win over Sky Blue. I purposely skipped the Houston Royals game because I do want to say the Royals, just because each game they are getting a little bit better. Same with Houston, even though they had been on that downward slide these last few games. But so I'm going to go with Royals, but it really depends on if Houston's going to connect like they had been doing in those first few matches in order to advance the semifinals. If they play the same way they did those first 2 games, for sure, like it won't be a draw, like nothing. Like it's going to be, they're going to end up winning. But if they can't connect early and score early, I do believe the Royals is definitely going to pull that out.
That's pretty true.
Yeah, but for me, I'm thinking the final, ultimately how everything's going to play out. Like I believe it's going to be the Spirit and North Carolina Courage. And Washington Spirit, they've looked amazing with or without the likes of Andy Sullivan and Rose Lavelle. In this last match, Rose was out. She ended up doing something to her ankle, and then they did get to play with Sullivan for just a little bit, and then unfortunately she did have that knee injury. So hopefully she's able to get back on the men's in a timely fashion. But even without those two key players, they looked amazing. So I do think it'll be NC and Spirit meeting in the middle there on that Sunday evening.
You're spot on with all those. I would agree with every single aspect of that. It's
Wow,
unfortunate.
we're agreeing.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that Houston has to be on the same side of the bracket as NC Courage, because if they were on the same side with Washington Spirit, then maybe you might have some difference of opinion. But I think, we're going to have NC Courage win against Portland. We're going to have, I think, Houston beat Utah.
Of course.
Washington Spirit will probably beat Sky Blue. The one that actually I think I'm more torn up about is Reign versus Chicago. Kind of like Dash versus Utah. That one could go either way a little bit more easily than the other games, but I do think probably Chicago will get out in the end. They've really showed a good tenacity during this tournament. It just comes down to getting the ball in the back of the net, which I don't think they have too much trouble doing. Yes, in this tournament it has looked that way, but they're still tied with two other teams when it comes to how many goals they've scored. So it's not that big of a deficit. There's no giant Sam Kerr problem there.
That is, it's a good point. That is another match to kind of be like, that literally could go either way.
Yeah, and I think really like Portland, like I mentioned before, they are a team that even though that they're at the bottom of the table, like I said, they only tied 3 games. So if they could actually tie against NC, and then that means they would go straight to penalties. So that actually, I think if I'm Portland, I'm going to say let's aim for a draw. That might be the best option.
Yeah, honestly, that is probably their best bet.
And so like for all these games, if it is a draw at the end of the 90 minutes, it will go straight to penalties as a way to not go to extra time in that heat and exhaust these players because of what's going around in the world nowadays. So that's just one measure the NWSL is taking, just like the hydration breaks.
Right, exactly.
But yeah, if that did go to penalties, NC does have the goal scorers, so that might not be the best option for Portland either. So
that's true, but that is honestly the one thing that Portland can bank on. If they can make it to a draw, then that's a good feat for them considering. But since you are talking about goal scorers, our Golden Boot race is looking good for you, Taylor. I say that with gritted teeth, but you did pick Lynn Williams, and she's sitting at the top of the pack with 3 goals. And the people have spoken. We did post that poll on Twitter, and the loser of our competition will be taking a shot of vodka and then running a mile.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, people, for voting. Appreciate it.
Yeah, so I chose Lynn Williams to win the Golden Boot, while you chose Kristen Hamilton.
I did.
And while Hamilton doesn't have any goals so far this tournament, but you can bet that she won't be throwing away her shot.
That's right. Thank you. Kristen, if you're listening, man, I have faith in you. Get me at least a goal, please.
Oh, I expect her to get on the score sheet one of these games, but then that could all go downhill if NC lost this next game, surprisingly.
Yeah, that's true, yeah. And it's also important to note that if both of us end up not even having our players show up and winning, we could both be doing the vodka mile challenge, because we do have Rachel Daly and Shay Groom sitting behind Lynn Williams with 2 goals each. So there is that possibility.
Yep. There might be 2 shots of vodka being taken.
That's right. Yeah. So, I mean, that's something important to note. I'm hanging on to that possibility, but I don't know. We'll see. It's been exciting kind of watching, and unfortunately, you rubbing it in my face.
Yeah, I think in the end we might both lose, but you never know. Because, like, if you look at it, Houston could just, like, go crazy in this next round. And who are the goal scorers? The 2 that you listed, so.
Yeah, it's true, yeah. So they could really be savages out on that field and just start scoring everything and just pass us up. Our people be like, wait, what? So
outside of the tournament itself, there's actually been some other good news in terms of NWSL.
Yeah, a new addition to the club, the league, is going to be racing Louisville FC.
Racing.
Racing. I know. Yep. So it's going to be based in Louisville, Kentucky. They do have a killer logo and their colors. I don't know if you've seen it, but they have this whole video, the whole hype for it that they had on Twitter. They do have available merch. And they also, on their logo launch date, broke amazing social interactions. So just alone, they had 1 million impressions on Twitter on that logo launch day. That's awesome.
They definitely knew how to drop it, and I think they did so well on this that I think you would almost forget that they actually dropped a name and a logo already.
Yeah.
But it did so bad that they're like, let's rewind.
Right. Yeah. And then they did have massive merch sales. They ended up doubling more than their previous record for the Lou City FC games that they have on like their actual match days. So they already doubled more than the men on those, just the merch alone. So definitely something to keep your eyes on.
Yeah, they're going to be a fun club to watch in the next 6 or 7 months as they start to build their roster and kind of factor into the league more. If their USL team, I said this in an article that I wrote, but if their USL team is anything to consider when you look at their NWSL team, then I think this will be a good team and could give like NC Courage maybe a run for their money in the next few years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's awesome. Just the expansion in general. And since Kentucky is just bordering my state, so it's good to kind of have a little bit more coming in the south, but it also is that midway point too, because it could be kind of considered a northern state. But it's just good to kind of have that more expansion opportunities in the league. So
yeah, definitely. We're all about expansion, careful and smart expansion, that is. But it's exciting to see them coming into the league.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also something fun to note, when all of our clubs were putting out their new home kits, just revealing everything, Sky Blues merch sold out super fast. So what they had was not only their kits, but they did also have like the different t-shirts and like tailgating equipment and just all the different things was sold out. I remember I had searched because I had seen that on Twitter or something, and like I went to their club page and like there really wasn't anything. It was slim pickings. So that's awesome for that club to be able to sell out literally of their online store.
Merch in general has been a high point during this time too, because with the Challenge Cup going on, there's just been a greater awareness of the league. So even outside of the new edition of Racing Louisville, there's been a lot of merch being sold from the other clubs as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then the game that happened yesterday with OL Reign, they had their pride shirts, their kits that they wore. They decided to auction those off. So anybody who would purchase the player worn team sign pride jerseys, they would get that. So they were donating all the proceeds to the Rainbow Center, and that sold out. Like they literally have sold completely out of those. So that's awesome too, but also giving back to that Rainbow Center as well. So a lot of cool things happening, not only merch, but just what the clubs are doing to generate and spread more awareness and just get more interactions going on too.
Yeah, definitely. And that really just encapsulates the whole experience that we've been having with this being the first American League back playing. And really now that you're looking at other leagues coming into the fold of playing again, really NWSL has done it the right way. And I think everything that's going for them right now is going perfectly fine, besides the one snag early on of Orlando
right,
not coming in. That aside, I think they've done a great job on all aspects of the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I know several pre-game and post-game commentary that takes place. Like they're always talking about that bubble and what the protocol is, when the player, might end up getting injured and they have to leave, or just like any case scenarios, like what happens. And it's been good atmosphere that they've been able to orchestrate down there. And yeah, the NWSL has done great just running it and facilitating it and making sure everything is all squared away. Well, I think that about does it for us. Looking forward to our next episode. We'll be wrapping up all the whole cup, so the entire Challenge Cup. in the meantime, you can definitely catch us on Twitter with our occasional audio match reporting and our tournament commentary.
Yes, we've got a lot of stuff coming for you as we wind down in this tournament. So, from Taylor in Wisconsin
and Kara in Tennessee,
we'll catch you all on the Stateside.
Bye!